Good evening, everyone. We are Group 6 and we are in charge to talk to you about native speakerism. So, let's start saying that in a broad assumption, a native speaker is a person of a specific place in the world, given that everyone is a native speaker of a particular language, state that the person has grown his/her communicative competence there. So far, so assertiveness we can find in this definition, the diversification of this context comes when saying, defining, or affirming a native speaker of what language. Thus, the concept and perception about this term started to become challenging, even more when talking about the language teaching field, due of the amount of scholars who argues about that. So in terms of linguistics, we find Cohort who identify native speakers of English as those who have grown up in the inner circle of countries such as Britain, America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Gruyer 2019, who affirms that a native speaker often thought of as an ideal language user with a complete and possibly innate competence in the language. So in this term, we find linguistic competence assumption, and also these assumptions can emerge everywhere and in a variety of them. And as the concept of the native speaker has come under criticism, overall linking to studies of World English, New Englishes, and English as a lingua franca, the assumptions can be pointless at the linguistic competence of a native speaker, because in a way, a foreign people can achieve this linguistic competence. So that's why we cannot infer any assumption regarding the linguistic competence.
According to Holliday, the concept of native speakerism is a pervasive ideology within ILT characterized by the belief that native speaker teachers represent a Western culture from which spring the ideals both of the English language and of English language teaching methodology. The native and non-native speaker divisions is a discourse in which derives from the native speakerism ideology. While the concept of speakerism not only damages the entire English language teacher profession, but also a popular perception of English in culture in this way. So first, this creates a disbelief in the cultural contribution of teachers who have been labeled as a non-native speakers. This label not only describes a relationship between with English, but also implies a cultural deficiency derived from no Western stereotype. Second, demeans native speakers who become commodities to serve the industry which is hungry for the native speaker ideal. So the native speaker also suffer discriminatory employment in this case. So discrimination is evident in employment practices, in customer preferences for the English-speaking West. Third, promotes the nature of the ideology disbelief. It idealizes teachers as native speakers as representing a Western culture, from which spring the ideals both of English and of the methodology for teaching. It also creates formal marginalization linked to factors such as region, accent, and appearance, and it acts to disrupt the teacher professional life. Fourth, fosters the disbelief in the ability of non-native speakers to teach English with an active oral expression, initiation, self-direction, in a deeper conviction that not Western English cultures are incomparable, limits teachers' professional development, and non-native speaker, or the concept of speakerism, reduces the academic and professional status of those left.
How do concepts of native speakerism affect the stakeholders? Those who have interest in the success of English language teaching might be affected by several aspects like this, like ignoring the diversity and complexity of a language. For example, native speakers are potentially more accomplished users of English than non-native speakers. This concept has a huge implication of the complexity and diversity of our profession. Affects, indeed. Now, let's take a look at this survey. It was done by majors with the support of the TORRES, apply a broader-based survey on 200 teachers in 10 countries. They encounter common difficulties and very serious on those teachers, like fluency, vocabulary, pronunciation, listening, comprehension, grammar, and idiomatic expressions. Over these circumstances, concepts like native speakers are potentially more accomplished users of English than non-native speakers become more stronger. We must consider very seriously these difficulties and demand effective language teacher programs to be more accomplished users of English and change a little the misconception of native speakerism. Let's ask ourselves this question. Is it true that the more efficient the teacher is in English, the less efficient he or she is bound to be? What do you say? Not true. Due to the complexity, the variety the teaching and learning and evaluative process has. Now, let's see this statement. The more proficient in English, the more efficient in the classroom. Majors, the author, says definitely that this is a false statement. At the end of his article, Fairley says, we should sensitize teachers both their limitations and potentials. At the end, the 80% of English teachers are L2 users of the language.
How do concepts of native speakerism affect policy, even when we have a new power dynamic? And in that sense, we can see that American culture is not the same around the world. People are changing their minds about American people and about the culture. For example, we can see that in films and movies and music, where new styles and new people around the world coming with different languages, and they are trying to rule the world. And it's not only about American people. We have a change in cultural flows, and it involves ideas and beliefs and even the economic rise of different countries. For example, China is a clear example of that, and Huawei's problem, maybe you have heard about it. It's a clear example because the technology is not only ruled by American people. English facilitates business, and people are talking between them in English, and they are not talking with native speakers mainly, but they are talking around the world, and they are talking in and with different accents and with different people. So we have new language possibilities, and some governments are including more languages, and they are not only including English in their curriculum, but they are also including French or Spanish or even Portuguese or Arabic. But that's a clear example of how a new language possibility is raising right now. We have the native speaker problem, and in that way we can talk about freedom. Maybe in some sense the non-speaker people can talk in a better way without a native speaker there, because maybe on one hand it's not being judged, and on the other hand they can talk about the cultural values and all their ideas and all their conception. Also, we can mention the countries should feel comfortable. So in that sense, it's clear that their culture needs to be protected, and their identity too. And in that way, they can protect also their local languages, which is something very crucial. Thank you, guys.